of the middle years program, or we will call it MYP in school. Today, I will briefly introduce the IB program. In particular, I'm going to talk about the MYP. I'll talk about what makes MYP an effective framework and what that will mean to you and your child. So what's IB and why did NJIS choose IB as its framework for learning beginning next year? IB is an internationally recognized framework designed to help schools around the world to provide quality education by promoting high standards of organization of the learning process, the whole learning process, right? This includes administration, school policies and practices, and for the DP program, a challenging curriculum that actually makes sense. There are 4 programs in the IB, the PYP program for the younger students, the MYP program for students in what we typically call 6th grade, 10th grade, and the Diploma program for years 11 and 12. These 3 programs will be offered at NJIS. However, the IB also has what they call the career-related program, or the CP program, which is aimed at students engaged in career-related education. So why did NJIS choose to implement IB? Why is IB a good fit for us and for our children? Where during the first half of the year, I don't know if you remember, NJIS revised its mission statement and its vision through a process that involved all stakeholders, right? Students, parents, staff, board, so that it would reflect our current reality. It wasn't long before we realized that the International Baccalaureate, or IB, seemed to provide a robust and reproducible platform that could support our school in achieving this new mission statement, providing an inspiring education that equips young people with the 21st century skills and knowledge needed to find new solutions for our world. So when we studied what the IB philosophy was, we saw several commonalities, right? NJIS and its staff, we believe that we need to develop a new type of learner. Building on what Mr. Gerald just said, a learner that is an inquirer, who likes to explore and has intellectual tools to do so, such as knowledge and critical thinking skills, as you also mentioned. A learner that can communicate effectively in any situation. A learner who will become a global citizen, a leader who acts with principles and cares about others. A person as a father, a mother, a brother, a sister that is open-minded and has the courage to make difficult decisions and reflect and learn from them. We need to grow professionals who live balanced lives. This is what we believe in the IB learning profile. The learner profile is the IB mission statement translated into a set of learning outcomes, or a set of expectations, if I may, for our children to achieve during their learning. As you can see, these are quite ambitious, actually. When I look at the learner profile, I often ask myself, Juan, how much of an inquirer are you really? Do you take your time to think? How do you organize your thinking? Like, coming from a physics background, this is very important to me. Are you communicating what you really mean to say? Do you have the courage to do what's needed for the benefit of your family, your students, yourself? Do you live a balanced life? Like a workaholic. Do you live a balanced life? Now I ask you, would you like your children to ask themselves these questions? Well, this is what the IB is about. The middle year program starts at grade 6, and we will call that MYP year 1, and ends in grade 10, what we will call MYP year 5. The MYP curriculum is built with the child at the center. It is a student-centered program that uses big ideas, concepts, approaches to learning, approaches to teaching, and global context to foster learning through action, that's important, and service. We do that through a community project and a personal project. You need to do a community project or a personal project to graduate. This core provides a platform, a foundation, and a lens through which the content areas are delivered. If you allow me to use an analogy from construction, the big ideas or the concepts, the key concepts, are the cement to join the bricks of knowledge and skills of each of the 6 content areas around a solid foundation of what we have just spoken about, the MYP core. These key concepts are interdisciplinary in general by nature, yet they are practical and very much related to real life. The 6 content areas are language and literature, which for us will be the English class. Individuals and societies, which is a combination of history, geography, business studies. You can see that each content area is responsible for at least 3 key concepts. Each key concept is addressed in more than one class. We have mathematics, which will be studied in what we know as integrated math, moving away from the traditional Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2 separation. We have design through our current course of STEM, in which kids learn how to solve real-life engineering problems through the design process. Students will still have the option to choose from different art options through the lens of aesthetics, change, communication, and identity. The study of sciences will be organized in an integrated approach that involves elements of life sciences, earth, physical, and environmental sciences for years 1 and 2. However, we will still keep this traditional division of biology, chemistry, and physics for years 3 to 5. Students will still be required to attend physical education through all of the 5 years of MYP. However, there will be more explicit instruction in terms of health education, extending the more traditional focus on fitness and sports. Students will be required to learn a language additional to English. This language will be Indonesian as it is mandated by law. However, we are considering offering Mandarin and Spanish, but we have to make that final decision yet. Now, a question that worries many parents and students is the grading system. How are my grades going to be calculated? MYP is very different in a very fundamental way to many other traditional systems. In MYP, each teacher in the content area assesses the student through, well, the student learning, not the student learning, through a very specific MYP mandated assessment criteria. These criteria have the approaches to learning, the learning profile embedded into them, right? So this assures that the IB goals we talked about at the beginning are met, are achieved. So how is the content organized? We talked about assessment, about grades. How is the content organized? How is the curriculum delivered? Well, the curriculum is divided in what traditionally are known as units. Unit 1, Unit 2, Unit 3, etc. Each unit is purposefully designed to spark an inquiry process through which the child will learn with the support of the teacher. This inquiry process has 3 elements. These elements support each other. These elements are the statement of inquiry, what are we exploring? The action generated from it, what am I going to do to find out more about this? And the reflection process, how did I do? Do I need to come back to it? Did this process generate more ideas to inquire on? And this way, the process repeats itself. Inquiry-based learning, by doing, what we call in education a constructivist approach, is effective and it's fun. So what does the assessment look like? The assessment is divided into formative assessment or assessment for learning, which is the assessment that we as teachers more often use to guide our practice and to adapt to better serve the child. And we also have the assessment of learning, or what we call also the summative assessment, which is the final rich task that will allow the students to showcase what he or she have learned. As one teacher I knew in Moscow very simply explained to me, when you are cooking a soup and you take a spoon and try the soup directly from the pot, you are doing formative assessment. You can decide whether you need to add more salt, spices, more time to finish the soup. Time is important. So when you serve the soup, when you serve it to the table, that is the summative assessment, the final appreciation of the product. However, it is not difficult to see that sometimes there is a little difference between the two of them. And this fact is often considered by teachers when we report grades on MYP. So keeping our soup analogy in our heads, I will briefly talk about what grading in MYP is not. MYP is not about reducing points for bad behavior, for less effort. It's about the taste and the quality of the soup. It's not about giving relative grades by curving with a bell curve. It's not about, surprisingly enough, it's not about percentages. 90% is B, 80% is C, and so on and so forth. Marks or grades in MYP are reported based on specific achievement descriptors of 4 assessment criteria. Each content area has their own assessment criteria, but there are always 4. Each achievement level is represented by a number from 0 to 8, and in order to understand what that number means, one actually has to go to the table and read the table. What does it mean? For example, on the slide, you have an example for mathematics, criterion AI. That means that if a student got, let's say, a score of 3, then we look at the table and we see, oh, then the student selects appropriate mathematics when solving more complex problems in familiar situations. If the student wants to achieve a score of 5 or 6, then it's clear and it's explicit what the student needs to do. The student needs to select appropriate mathematics when solving challenging problems in familiar situations. So there is no hidden aspect of the assessment. Everything is clear and everything is explicit. Please note that the level does not say, and that's important, the student obtained 85% of the questions right in a test, or 75% or 95%, right? So changing the way we teach in MYP also changes the way we perceive the assessment of education at home and how the children also perceive the way they get assessed and educated. This is very important. It's a challenge, and it's a challenge. Now, the semester grade is calculated by adding the result of each criteria. Then we use a table to generate the final score on a grade of 7. And then, should we decide to do so, we can translate the MYP grade from 1 to 7 to a semester grade from A to F, or from F to F, according to this table, right? So after listening to all this technical information, to all this extensive description, right? After listening to me saying things that probably do not make too much sense at first sight, maybe you're asking yourself this logical question. I would definitely ask this question. So is MYP any good? Does it really work? So a study in a large school district in the United States investigated the impact of MYP participation on a high school course enrollment and achievement rate. A statistical technique called propensity score matching was used to compare the high school outcomes of former MYP students with demographically similar non-MYP students. So students who take the MYP course or program versus students who do not. Former MYP students were 34% more likely than non-MYP students to take at least one AP exam or diploma program. So they are more eager or more prepared to face challenge immediately after middle school. Additionally, MYP enrollment significantly increased the likelihood of earning at least one college-ready score. Means they are most probably better prepared to college if they go through the MYP, right? Even if they don't take the DP, right? However, DP has their own, boost there, but that's a separate story. But taking the MYP statistically makes a difference in tackling challenging and being more ready for college. As a final note, I want to share what is the status of the MYP in our school. So in order to be fully authorized an MYP school, NJIS needs to complete what is called the verification process. This process includes a full trial implementation year that we will begin this coming August. So we are aiming to be fully authorized by the end of this trial phase in 2021, right? The green color indicates the stage we're at, and the blue color indicates what we're in process of doing and what is in front of us. And on this happy note, I am transferring the remote control to Mr. Tomby. Pat Tomby is going to talk more about the DP program. And after that, his presentation, then we can have some questions should you have some. Okay, thank you for your attention.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cardenas. So I'll try to share my screen. The DP program is the last tier in IB education. It starts with PYP, MYP, and then all of those culminate in the diploma program. So this is a program that is intended for grade 11 and grade 12. Okay, so first thing that we need to understand about the DP program is that it's a 2-year course. It's a 2-year course. What that means is within those 2 years, students take exactly the same subjects, the same classes. So they don't change classes as they go from grade 11 to grade 12. So let me try to explain quickly how the DP program works. Hopefully I can do that in less than 5 minutes. So like any other programs in IB, in PYP, MYP, DP is also this circular diagram that summarizes what's happening in the DP program. The core of the program is the student, the learner profile. This is what we are trying to achieve. So IB teachers are not teachers of subjects. IB teachers are teachers of learners. So we cultivate learners. We use specific subjects only as tools to develop the learners. Okay, so the center of the whole IB education is the learner themselves. And in order to create effective learners, we apply methodologies in IB that's known as approaches to teaching and approaches to learning. These are pedagogical methodologies that become the base of our teaching methods in IB schools. And in order to implement those methodologies, we of course need tools. We need tools to apply these methodologies in everyday, day-to-day teaching. So in the DP, those tools are divided into 2 categories. Okay, one is what I would call the fundamental tools, and that is the layer, the next layer that you see here, that consists of theory of knowledge, extended essay, and creativity, activity, and service. These are the core subjects of the DP program. These are very important. Students must pass these courses, otherwise they will not get the diploma. So what are those? What are these? If you imagine a spectrum, consisting of these 3 core subjects, the theory of knowledge will sit on the side of the philosophical side of education. In this course, kids ask questions like, what is knowledge? Why do we learn? How can we learn effectively? How does our emotion play a role in our learning? What is reason? What does it mean to be logical? So you can think of those as philosophical questions. So kids will dig deep inside themselves to find out what learning means to them as a human being. And then on the other side of the spectrum, you can see this creativity, activity, and service. This is on the application side. This is when kids go out of their comfort zone. They react, they socialize with other people. They do something that they've never done before. They can do community service. They can do things that they always wanted to do but haven't had time or the courage to do it. For example, students who aspire to be musicians, they can compose their songs, they can create their own albums, they can even try to sell the albums, okay? So these are the kind of projects that students can do in creativity, activity, and service. Or if someone aspires to be, maybe someone wants to learn martial arts, for example, they can do that also. So all kinds of options that students can do, and they must complete this course, which sometimes we call as CAS or CAS. Now, anything in between the philosophical side and between the philosophical side and the application side, you have, this is what's called extended essay. So extended essay is research. It's individual research. It's more on the academic side. So students pick a topic of their interest and they do in-depth research for that particular topic. And at the end of that program, they have to write a 4,000-word essay that will summarize the result of their research. So those three subjects are the core of the DP program, and these are the fundamental tools that students need to learn in order to be an effective learner. Now, on top of these fundamental tools, you have the next layer. These are specific tools. Yeah, these are specific tools where students learn in more details about many things. Yeah, this layer is what we call the subject groups, and in DP there are 6 subject groups. Yeah. The first group is studies in language and literature. Group 2 is language acquisition. You can think of this as the second language. Yeah, so DP students are encouraged to acquire a second language. And group 3, this is individuals and society. Group 4 is sciences. Group 5 is mathematics, and group 6 is the arts. So ideally speaking, a student must take one subject from each group. So they have to take 6 subjects within the course of 2 years. Now, what are those subjects? There are a whole list of subjects available for the general DP programs, but at NJIS, for the first class of DP, which will be in 2021 to 2022, these are the subjects that we'll be offering to those kids. In group 1, there'll be English. Now, all these 6 subjects are offered in 2 levels, high level and standard level. I'm going to talk about the difference a little bit later. But at NJIS, group 1 will be English. Group 2 will be Bahasa Indonesia because that is the government requirement. Group 3, we are going to offer business management. Group 4 will be offering biology and chemistry. Group 5 will be offering these 2 categories of mathematics, math application interpretation, and math analysis and approaches. And group 6 will be offering visual art and music. So those are the 6 options that we are now thinking about. But on top of this, students may also select alternative options courses that are offered on Pamoja, and that is an IB certified online platform. For example, in group 3, instead of business management, maybe a student is interested in economics, for example. Yeah, they can take economics instead of business management. Okay, let me just go back a little bit to this slide right here. So over the course of the 2-year programs, the students must take 6 subjects from the 6 subject groups. They must complete the extended essay. They must follow the theory of knowledge course, and they must participate in creativity, activity, and service. Now, the 6 subjects typically consist of 3 high-level courses and 3 standard-level courses. Sometimes exceptional students are permitted to take 4 high-level courses, but that would require special permission from IB, and from what I understand, it's the requirement is not easy. It's very difficult. Okay, so what are typical selection for students? What subjects what combination of subjects can you take? Well, I'm giving you a few examples here. If a student is interested to be in physical science or engineering as in their college major, yeah, they can select English in group 1. They will have to take Bahasa Indonesia. They will have to take business management, or they don't have to, but they could take business management. And because they're going to engineering, they are encouraged to take physics for science, and that physics it better be high level. Okay, and they can take analysis approaches for mathematics, and they can take chemistry for group 6. Now, this is a special arrangement where a student can take another science class in to replace an art class. Okay, so that's an option that is allowed in IB. If kids want to go to medicine, for science, they probably have to take biology high level, and they can also replace the art with chemistry, high level chemistry. If your kids are interested to go to architecture, yeah, they can take physics in group 4, and they can take art in group 6. If students are interested to major in business, they can take biology, because a student must take a science class, so they can choose to take biology, but they can take the standard level biology, and they can take economics to replace art in group 6. So these are just typical options that students can take, and depending on where they want to go, they can have discussions with me or with the school counselor about their particular course selections. Okay, and how does a student obtain a diploma? What are the minimum requirements? The maximum points that a student can achieve in the DP program is 45. That's the maximum. How is this broken down? It's broken down into 2. In the group 1 to 6 subjects, the students can have a total of 42 points. And that means they score 7 in each of the subjects, 7 being the highest. Okay, and the other 3 points they can get from what's called the bonus points from the core subjects. Sorry about that. So the core subjects are the TOK, Theory of Knowledge and Extended Essay. The Creativity, Activity and Service course will not be graded. Yeah, the CAS will not be graded, but students will be graded in TOK and Extended Essay. So depending on what grades they make in those courses, they can earn extra bonus points. Let's say a student makes an A in TOK and an A in Extended Essay, they earn 3 bonus points. Okay, if a student makes a D in TOK and a D in Extended Essay, they earn no bonus points. Okay, but if they score 42 or 7 in each of these subject groups, they still get the 42 maximum points. Okay, in order for a student to pass the diploma course and for them to receive the diploma, they have to earn at least 24 points. But it's not as simple as just earning 24 points. There are specific conditions that must be fulfilled. For example, let's say students, they get the maximum points in all 6 subjects, 42, very excellent students. But they fail one of these core subjects. They get an E in TOK. They don't get the diploma. Okay, although they probably score the highest. They get the highest points in the 6 subjects. Okay, so there are specific conditions that you have to fulfill. A student cannot earn a grade of 1 in any subject. If they get 7 points in 5 subjects and get 1 in just 1 subject, they don't get the diploma. So there are specific conditions that must be fulfilled. So it's not just about the total points. Okay, so because I'm running out of time, I'm just going to skip some of this. This is, I want to show you some statistical data, and these data are from Australian and New Zealand universities. What this data shows is how universities in Australia and New Zealand perceive high school graduates from different systems. So on this particular graph, you have the IB, you have the state certificate, this is New Zealand certificate A levels, and then American APs. One thing that you can notice immediately is it's divided into 6 categories. Notice that the IB students are uniformly distributed across all these categories. Yeah, deep learning, broad learning, critical thinking, communication, research, self-management. The IB students are perceived as to be consistently skillful in all of this. Yeah. If you go to the specific, you can do the deep learning, for example, the A-level students are perceived to be more knowledgeable in a particular subject. Yeah, but that is because the A-level subjects are more rigorous in academics. A typical high-level IB course takes 240 hours in 2 years to teach. The same level of subject in the A-level course takes 360 hours. So in terms of teaching hours, A-levels are more rigorous. So students spend a lot more time doing learning the actual subject. But the A-level is not as uniformly distributed across the different categories. So I guess you can say that the main strength of the IB program is this uniform distribution of skills of the students in all these categories that we all discussed about in our breakout rooms. So, and this is a statistic from China. This is from graduates of DP schools in China. More than 70% of them attend top 500 universities in the world. Okay, so majority of DP graduates in China are able to go to very good universities. And I think in the interest of time, I'm gonna end my explanation here. So unless you have questions, that I can go to other slides, but otherwise I'm gonna end it here. So I'm gonna hand it over to Gerald. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tommy. Thank you for that. Okay, so yeah, no, I think I think there's a lot of information in there. There's a lot to absorb in a very short period of time. But please note also that this won't be the only time we talk about these things. You know, we will be coming back to, you know, an understanding of something is built over time. It's built over repeated discussion, repeated meetings. We intend to continue to have these sessions, to continue to have these meetings throughout the academic year to come. This might be the last one for this academic year, but we intend to have them in throughout the academic year to come, to ensure that you are all kept appraised and updated and informed about our process and about the IB. But we do, well, technically we don't have any time, but we do have a little bit of time, I think, if we can, if perhaps some of you might like to ask a couple of questions. I think we could probably fit in maybe 2 or 3 questions before we close today's session.
Hi, Mr. Gerald. I have a question if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I think in summary, I kind of get the idea. Well, I'm not really understanding in detail, but I think it's really critical for kids to really learn something which is very applicable for their real world. Question I have more on the transition and how actually the school support to the student, because I believe this is a new skill set for probably the student. And then Mr. Tomby mentioned is outside the comfort zone, and also it's probably learning curve for everyone. Question I have, for example, for students which is kind of like grade 9 or grade 10, I mean, the learning curve will just getting sharper because they only have like 2 or 3 years to master everything before they graduate. And while in the meantime, next year is still a bit transition. So I just want kind of understand how actually the student will be able to understand the transition And obviously there will be a bit of struggle at the start, as always, for when we're implementing something new. While at the same time, they need to be assessed for some sort of the criteria. So I'm just wondering how actually the whole thing will be connected, and how actually the student trying to profit the student, and obviously how parents also need to play a role in these changes for the next years, especially for kids who's going to go to DP in the next 1 year or so. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a great question. That's a great question. It is something that we're very aware of, and it's something that we're sort of building into our planning process. Is, yeah, of course. I mean, the current this year's grade 10 students, of course, they will not be going into a DP program next year. Because we will be starting DP in the 21-22 school year. So our current grade 10s will go up into grade 11. They'll still be following the US curriculum / AP approach. So it's the current grade 9s and below are the ones that will be transitioning into DP when they reach grade 11. And so what that does mean is that they have, of course, at least 1 year of MYP and 1 year of IB before they will enter into the DP program, which I think is quite advantageous. I think it's good that they have that year cushion of preparation to get them ready. My daughter actually has been through this process herself. So I moved from my school in Bogor, which was we moved from my school in Bogor, which was a Cambridge school. So, you know, Cambridge and Common Core AP, there's definitely some similarities there. More of a traditionally structured curriculum program. So my daughter was grade 10 when we moved to an IB school in Medan, when I moved to Medan Independent School, and so she experienced basically having to switch from Cambridge to IB for 1 year and then immediately going into the DP program. So essentially she experienced the same thing that our students are about to experience, if you see what I mean. And what I noticed from her was that there was an immediate, like within a few months, she came. Both of my daughters actually came and had the same conclusion, which was they came to me and said, "Since we moved to an IB school, we're working harder." And I said, "Okay, are you okay with it? You know, are you finding it stressful?" And the way they responded was, "We're working harder, but it's not because the teachers are pressuring us or scaring us or you know, that they're standing over us and threatening us. We're working harder because the kind of work we're doing is more engaging. We have more voice and more control over how we learn. So we're pushing ourselves. It's more of an internal motivation rather than an external motivation coming down on us." So this is why I'm not worried about the transition for our NJIS students. It's because within a few months of this learning approach, within a few months of, you know, the approaches to learning, the learner profile, all these features of the IB way of teaching and learning, what I think the students will notice is the same thing that my own kids experience, which is that it's a more challenging, more satisfying, more rewarding way of learning. So the transition tends to be, I find at least, quite smooth between the two models. And I've also experienced, because in Indonesia students tend to move schools between grade 9 and grade 10, right? Because that's where SMP becomes SMA. So in previous schools, I've also experienced students coming in from Cambridge schools, from Singapore curriculum schools, from various other models, coming in grade 10 and having 1 year of MYP before they go into DP. And the adjustment I've noted and seen again and again has always been a positive one. It's always been a smooth transition because of in many ways, it's just such a preferable way to learn.
Okay, thanks for sharing, Gerald.
Thank you.
If I may add a bit to it,
Please.
Sorry. The best fuel, let's put it this way, as you know, for a culture change, it's the culture itself. So we are not changing only the approaches to teaching and learning and the curriculum, we are changing the school culture, right? So when we change the school culture is something that is built not only by teachers, of course, it's built by students and parents. So when we all are in this new wave of learning, the whole school, or the school as a whole, creating this culture, will create what is called in mathematics, in physics, called a feedback, right? Producing, again, an effect of amplifying, right? This feedback effect produces amplification. Therefore, we as a school engaging, in such a radical changing culture, will have not only elements being implemented in different classrooms, it's the whole school, engaging in a culture that will help the student quickly adapt, because we are all doing this together. It's a culture change, not only a classroom change, if that makes sense. Sorry for the technicality.
That's a good question.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. Okay. Maybe we can squeeze in one more question, if anyone else has something they'd like to ask.
I have a question.
All right.
So I would like to hear about the parents. What do they think about when you have seen all of this? What is your first impression? Do you look forward to it? And how do you look forward to this? Let me repeat the question, right? So after hearing hearing me, hearing Mr. Gerald, you as a parent, what are your expectations now? Do you look forward to next year a little bit more than maybe before this small talk or conference we just had? That's my question.
So I think personally, from my side, Mr. Cardenas, I think it's a good approach in the way, like we obviously want our students to be more critical, to be more collaborative, to be more communicative. I think it's all we are moving to the right direction. Is what our kids would like to do. And I think you mentioned a good point about the feedback. I think probably one thing that can help all of us to get connected is to have much more engaging when we go through the transition. For example, I know we normally have like this PTA conference with probably every quarter, if I'm not wrong. So I think when we go through these changes next year, transition, I think it's probably good, as what Mr. Gerald also mentioned, for us to get connected a bit more often, so we can also be able to support our students or the school, and of course we can also give feedback to our kids outside the school environment as well. I think those working together within parent and school to go through this transformation next year, I think it will be very critical, at least from my point of view. Thank you.
Thank you. That's right. We plan to have these information sessions very, very, very often, and we will continue to have this teacher-parent communication. I mean, we'll try our best to increase the frequency. But thank you for your comment. I think it's very valid, and we'll try to keep that communication cycle up.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. Well, I mean, unless there are any other questions, I've noticed a couple of people are dropping out already because we have run a little bit over time. But I just want to really say thank you. I want to say thank you so much. You know, it's a Friday. You're all in different places around the world, and I know you're all very busy. So I want to say thank you for investing the time in this important discussion. You know, this is about perhaps one of the most important things, or the most important thing in our life, which is our kids' future. And you know, personally, I appreciate you being here today. I want to say a big thank you to Mr. Tombi, a big thank you to Mr. Cardenas as well for your wonderful presentations. And as requested, as you just mentioned, you know, I'm looking forward to trying to have more of these sessions, hopefully face-to-face, within once the new school year starts, and trying to continue this level of engagement, because it's hugely important. And you're right, you know, a lot of this culture change is going to happen from home as well. The support that we're able to give at home is going to build into that feedback loop that Mr. Cardenas described. So thank you for taking the time.
Thank you everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Bye.